Monstrous home run from Bret Boone. Number 37 for Bret Boone.
Goodbye! Home run! Bret Boone!
Well hit deep to right field. It's over. Goodbye, baseball. Bret Boone wins it.
First thing I'd like to ask you about is 92. You became the first third-generation MLB player. Kind of family legacy for the Boones. Was there pressure, I guess, growing up to kind of say you got to be an MLB player? There's an expectation, or was it kind of just naturally instilled upon you?
Well, no pressure at all growing up. That's the one thing my parents did. It was there. The unique situation I was in is man, I was in the minor leagues when Dad was still going to big league camp. So our professional paths almost crossed. The Griffeys are the only ones to do it. But we were about a year and a half away. So
Wow.
I had a pretty unique childhood, and I was, like with my kids, by the time they were in 7th, 8th grade, I was done playing. With my dad's situation, I went into the minor leagues and he was still playing for the Angels. So, the Kansas City Royals at that time. So it was always there for me. I tagged along when I was little. I'd go to the ballpark as much as I possibly could. And as I got a little bit older, I had my own baseball and winter leagues and summer ball. So I didn't get to spend as much time at the ballpark. But no, it was always there. It was never. I never felt any pressure from Dad that you got to do this. It was kind of presented to me, and he said that'd be great if you follow my footsteps. And if not, he was very supportive of whatever I pursued. But baseball just from day one was kind of what I was meant to do.
And you were drafted twice, so the decision to kind of pass over the first time and go from high school to the minor leagues and play college.
Well, you know what I think. Coming out of high school, I was drafted late at 28th round, something like that, and by the Twins. And I had a scholarship to USC, and it really wasn't even a thought. I was 18 years old, and I was pissed. And I thought, I'm the best player around here, and why am I getting drafted so late?
Yeah.
I was little at the time. Little did I know it was probably the best thing for me. I had a chance to go to college, and I see a lot of young kids now, and they're in that position. There are very few people I see at 18 years old that are mentally and physically mature enough for professional baseball. I really believe that. And I think college really gives you a stepping stone, and because it teaches you grow up as a person into you go from a kid to a young man. You're on your own a little bit, but it's done with kind of kid gloves. You gotta take care of your schoolwork. You don't have mommy there to wake you up, but at the same time, you're still kind of in a bubble in it. And it's a good transition to grow up a little bit, be on your own in life. And then it's time for professional baseball. I'd say majority of people, there are the exceptions, obviously, that are just mentally and physically really mature 18-year-old guys and can handle it. But it's very rare these days. So my college definitely is something that I needed. Because by my junior year when I got drafted, I was ready to go, and I got to the big leagues pretty quick, about just under 2 years.
Yeah. And I know you started your career in 92, and you did play through the 94 and 95 strike. So I guess how does the strike and lack of baseball then kind of compare to now with the whole, do you feel it's the same? Is it different?
No, it's very different. This is different because this was brought upon us by something we have no control over. The strike of 94 was something that we could not come to an agreement, with the owners. And there was a lot of bad blood, and there was a lot of bad faith negotiating. And next thing I know, they're canceling the World Series. And I'm a young player at the time. I was a player. I was an assistant player for the Reds at that time. So I really educated myself by being a part of that and being behind the scenes and being in those meetings. So I saw what truly went on. I think there was a big difference because that was over the basic agreement. I've done a bunch of shows throughout the last 2-3 months, keeping up with the negotiations of the union and the owners. And, my stance from the beginning was there's some things in life worth fighting for. And there's some things that I'm willing to go to the mat for. This wasn't one of them. This is during a pandemic. Obviously, very unique circumstances surrounding it all. I thought it was an opportunity for Major League Baseball to do a huge PR positive thing for the game, being the only game in town, getting out there, kind of being the sport that kind of brought us out of this, per se. And I thought it was a great opportunity for them. Unfortunately, I don't think they handled it very well. I don't think they handled it very well from a PR standpoint, from Manfred down to a lot of the players in this arena. But it is what it is. It's big time negotiations, and when there's that kind of money on the line, there's always going to be some ugliness. It's unfortunate for the fans because they don't want to hear about it, And I learned that through my trials and tribulations in the union was fans don't really care about me talking about the millions of dollars that I'm missing out on. There's guys out there right now wondering where their $1,200 stimulus check is. So guys don't want to be hearing other guys talk about millions of dollars. They just want to see their Cubs. They just want to see their Brewers on TV tonight and leave us out of the rest of it. Nowadays, it's tough with the social media. I couldn't imagine what it would have been back in '94 if we had social media. Now we do. So anybody can say anything. It's at the tip of their fingers. Yeah. So I think relatively speaking, they did okay from a player standpoint. I thought there was going to be a lot more people speaking out. I wish they would have got a handshake deal done in the end instead of Manfred having to implement this. For whatever reason, the players obviously wanted him to implement it because they got 60 games. I think the players wanted 80 games. I think it would have been better from a fan's perspective to have 80 games. There's a reason baseball is a 162. It's a long marathon, and it's not built for the short term. Anybody can have a good month and put themselves in the catbird seat for a playoff position, but that's not baseball.
Yeah.
Also, too, it's going to be very interesting with this wild card being the COVID and the amount of time that these players, how often I would say, they're going to be subject to being tested. So not only is it a 60-game schedule, but it's a 60-game schedule where injuries become a premium. Whereas in 162 games, you can weather the storm of, let's just give an example of Mike Trout with the Angels. If he goes down for 10 days, the Angels can weather that storm, but in a 60-game schedule, it's going to be a little tougher. Now you throw in the the wild card of COVID, where any given day anybody could test positive for it, and now that's going to be treated like an injury. You're on the sideline. So, man, I think I'm like everybody else. It's a wait and see thing. We'll see how it goes. I think if people stay relatively COVID free, and the injuries that are at a minimum, I think you're going to have a really fun, fast, different 60 game. And then I think you're going to have an exciting playoff, and they're going to crown somebody the world champion. And I think the fans are going to forget all about this pre-season negotiations and back and forth. That usually an exciting, good product. Get rid of all those bad ill will.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off what you were saying. Every game now means something. For 162, you can probably you can have a little bit cold stretches, but pick it up in the end. But now, if you're playing 60 games, I mean, every game is important.
Right, and I think there could be some positives if this is done right. Which you know what, Major League Baseball, they're always doing. They do a first class. It's a first class operation. But if they roll this thing out right, there could be a lot of cities that have a lot of excitement that maybe in a normal year wouldn't have a lot of excitement. So I think you're going to bring some other teams into the mix. From a fan's perspective, normally at this stage of the season, we're out of it. This year we're in it. Everybody's in it. I think that could be a real positive thing for the game. I think in the end, getting this out of the blocks and being the only game in town, the only live game in town. I know now we have golf, but baseball's going to have its own thing for the average guy sitting at home, going to work, coming home, man, he's got his team back. I think that could be a real healing part, because I think the rest of us, now I look at myself, I get to play this game a long time, but now I'm a fan like everybody else, and I miss my sports. I want to turn on and see how my buddies team or how my brother's team is doing. I miss that, so I'm looking forward to it as well, and I think it could be a real positive thing. But it's definitely this COVID thing. I keep referring. I hate to keep referring back to it, but I think it's going to be a real wild card in this. And who's touched by it and who's not, and it could play a role in these pennant chases.
I know it seems like every day there's a couple more players opting out and a bunch of big names. I know Markakis about a couple hours ago said he opted out. Would you, if let's say this happened during your playing career, would you feel comfortable playing during it, or would you be more on the opt-out side?
Oh, I wouldn't even think twice about it. I signed a contract and I have an obligation to my team. If my teammates are playing, I'm playing. I'm not here to judge other guys, other grown men. They make their decisions and they make them for maybe reasons I don't know. So the last thing I'm going to do is sit here and judge. I know personally, if it were me, if I were in the middle of my career, it wouldn't even be a question. I wouldn't think twice about it. And I was having with some players, some buddies of mine, ex-players as well. We talked about it a little bit. And I said, I think if this was the middle of our career, I'd say, how would you go about it? It was an interesting back and forth discussion because I think, when I put on that uniform, I represent a city and a town, and I represent Major League Baseball. And I think I'd really take this serious. I said to the point where I might quarantine from my family for 2 months just because I need to be accountable to my teammates. And if I come in and I test positive, not that I'm sick and I was worried about my health, but the fact that I test positive, I'm on the sidelines. Well, now I'm letting my team down. So I think, players are going to do that to themselves. They're going to be accountable to one another and how they police that. It's like, we normally love to go out and get a bite to eat at this restaurant, but just for 2 months, we've got to stay cohesive and together. So there's going to be a little give up, and I think that'll be pretty cool for some team bonding if the guys can really all get on the same page. Because if you're going to do it, I say do it right. And if you're going to do it right, you've got to stay away from everyone and everything as much as possible.
Yeah.
So you can stay away from testing positive. That's going to be part of the game. Yeah. I mean, the team the guys that get a little loose with and just kind of live their normal life and get caught up in this and get tested positive, and a teammate gets tested, that's going to that 60-game schedule. So, and not that it's relevant because I wouldn't be playing right now, but it was fun kicking it around with some old teammates of how would you handle.
Yeah. Like I know the
question. I just made a short question really long, but the answer is me personally, I wouldn't even think about opting out.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting to hear kind of different mindsets on where you'd be then and now type thing. But I know for instance the Red Sox, they moved all their clubhouses into into their suites to kind of space everything out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of like
you're gonna have some real unique ideas. This is this is uncharted waters that everybody's in, and they're just kind of all going through it at the same time to see what's on the other side.
Yeah. Kind of switching gears a little bit for the 2020 season. I know you mentioned a couple teams kind of have an opportunity. I think the National League, in my opinion, is a little more at advantage with the new DH rule. Do you think that there's going to be like a sleeper team out of there, maybe a team that, wasn't going to do well on a 162 game schedule, but now you add the shortened season and a DH, do you think has more of an advantage this year?
Let's take I don't know if it's necessarily an advantage for the National League from a DH perspective because this is the first time it's been implemented. So all of a sudden we got to get a DH. A lot of these American League teams have bona fide DHs. The Nelson Cruz, which is a modern day bona fide big time DH. National League has never had to worry about that. So all of a sudden they're just going to have another hitter, whoever that may be their DH. I'm a fan of the DH. I'm very, very old school in my thoughts in the game of baseball. I don't like a lot of the rule changes. But this one, for me, as I get older, I have a different perspective. It's not about me. It's what do the fans want? I think the DH is going to enable us 40 years from now to look back and not miss a Big Papi from Boston, not miss a Frank Thomas the second half of his career, to not miss an Edgar Martinez when he couldn't play third base. If there were no DHs, there wouldn't be these guys. And I think going forward, you're going to have the opportunity to see some Hall of Fame type offensive players that maybe without the DH in all 30 teams, you wouldn't have got a chance. But I think about other sports. I think about the NFL, and there's no different rules in the AFC than there is in the NFC. So why is it that way in baseball? The people, some people are going to argue, well, I like the National League game. I like that. I like the strategy without the DH and the 8-hole and the double switches. I get that. And I'm a purist at heart. But it's 2020, and I think fans like this. And time's going to tell. I mean, this is being implemented for this 60 game, and then they're going to decide going forward, are we going to keep this? My personal opinion, I think they're really going to like the DH, and I think they're going to keep it. I'm actually on board for that. But we'll see. It's going to be, as far as the teams going in, it's going to, as we touched on earlier, it's the injury factor, the COVID factor, are the wild cards in a 60-game season, without a doubt. It depends who gets in. Now, if everybody equally, percentage-wise, had the same amount of COVID, the same amount of injuries, all fairness being said going forward, I don't think you're going to see a big surprise this year. I think the big boys are going to be the big boys. I think a team could probably sneak into the playoffs that maybe normally couldn't. But there's a lot of landmines once you get to the playoffs. And just because you get there doesn't mean you can win. Usually at the end, we talk about this all we want. We can talk about this new theory in baseball, having 9 relievers in the bullpen and this and that. When push comes to shove at the end of the day, when the 2 best teams are standing, you usually look at their starting pitching, and it's the best starting pitching in the world. Last year was no different. Usually the best starting pitching is the one standing in the end. They don't always win, but they're always there. And I don't think this year is going to be any different. The people with the best starting pitching and the best teams are probably going to be standing at the end, but it's going to add a lot of excitement for, like you said, maybe a 500 ball club a year ago that stays injury-free, that stays somewhat COVID-free. Man, they're going to have a chance to add some excitement to their team. But when you get to that postseason, man, there's a lot of landmines, and you better be a pretty good team to get through the teams to get to the big dance.
Yeah, I think it'll bring a lot of excitement to someone, as you said, like the sub 500, the 500 level teams, those cities that kind of haven't really experienced postseason baseball for a while, to kind of get them into it a little bit more, and then for seasons to come, kind of say, hey, maybe we really got a shot here.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Kind of one little quirk thing I wanted to mention, going back to 2002, when you and Mike Cameron back-to-back in the first inning against the White Sox. I got to say, what's
easy, baby.
Yeah, hit your first home run, no big deal, start of a game. But when you come up the second time, is that even going through your head at all? Or what's your –
No. You know what I remember going into that series? Man, I was scuffling. I was off to a slow start, and that was the reason that Lou, that particular day, switched the lineup up. Cammy and myself were never hitting back-to-back. And I think Edgar had the day off. So it was kind of one of those lineups where let's shake it up and see if we can get some guys going. I know I was scuffling at the time. And I hit that first home run, and I said, okay, now that feels pretty good. And I thought nothing of it. Mike hit the home run right behind me. We've gone back-to-back, not Cameron and myself, but back-to-back is a pretty common thing in baseball. It happened. So we didn't think much of it, but all of a sudden, and we've all been involved in those innings before, where you just have one of those days where, I've been on both sides of the ledger, where I'm sitting out in the field on defense going, wow, this is going to be a long one. And I've been on the fun side when it seems like you do, whatever you do, you can't do anything wrong. And that was one of those days. And I remember going through the first inning, like, wow, we're going to hit again. And no, the last thing on my mind is not, like I said, at that juncture, I can remember at that time I was scuffling a little bit. So my objective was to just get my swing going. I had the homer, but now, hey, let's go up there and have another good at bat. And all of a sudden, hit another home run. And it's still the first inning, which is a little strange. And then Mike comes up and he hits one. Now we're kind of looking around like, I think we did something pretty special right there. Come to find out, yes, we did. We were the only people ever to do it. And I think we started jawing in the dugout, me and Mike, about, who's going to hit another, who's going to hit the most, whatever. And I come up my next bag and I strike out. And by the time I get back to the dugout, I'm looking up and Cammy's circling the bases again. And I'm going, wow, 3. I go up my fourth at bat and I strike out. Cammy hits another one. Now he's at this point, I've hit 3 home runs in a game. I've done it twice. And I'll tell you, when you hit 3 home runs in a game, that is like the most unbelievable thing. But I couldn't imagine 4. 4 is a completely different level that only a few people that have walked this earth have gone. So when Cammy hit that 4th, I knew right there, wow, that's something. I think it's only been done maybe 10 times in the history of baseball. My last at bat, I walked and standing on first base, and I believe it was Paul Konerko. We were talking, and it was a blowout game. We were killing them, and kind of the rules in baseball when it's late in the game and you're up by that many. There's certain things you don't do. You don't steal second base. You don't pitch. And Cammy got the 3-0 in that 5th at bat. Now nobody's ever hit 5 in a game. And I remember turning to Paulie and saying, Paulie, if there's ever an exception to the rule, don't swing in this type of game 3-0, it's right now. And he looked at me and goes, I agree. I don't think anybody's mind that. He took the pitch. 3-1, he took a pretty good swing. He fouled it straight back. And then on the 3-2 pitch, he smoked the ball to right center. And I remember, but I could tell as a runner, I knew that ball's hit good, but that ball's not going out far.
Yeah.
You kind of just have that feeling. I can tell what's going out and what's not going out. I knew it was going to be just short, but he hit it to the warning track, gave the fans a thrill. I remember we gave him kind of serenaded him into the clubhouse afterwards. And I tease him every year it comes up and there'll be some mentions made of it, about Cammy's 4 home run day. And we went back to back. And I said, Cammy, the older and older we get, one day it's going to be me that hit the 4. And you were just going back to back with me. And I tease him about it. But what a day. I got to see that. Never seen that before. I've seen some 3 home run games, but not 4.
Yeah, I totally forgot that was his 4 home run game as well. I thought it was just back to back for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting there back to back. I got 2 home runs and 4 ribbies in the first inning. That's usually a pretty good day.
Yeah.
And come to find out, I'm on the back page of the newspaper because of one of my teammates.
It's still a great day. I also noticed, I was kind of watching the highlights for that this morning too. You always did a little bit of a natural bat flip kind of after you hit. Was that intentional or was that just your follow through?
Well, I always got rid of the bat that way. I kind of got rid of it in a flicky way. I think as I got a little older, and I just did it one day. I got one, and I always had that way of releasing the bat, but I just kind of added a little bit to it. And I ran around the bases, and I came back in, and my teammates kind of liked it. They said, "We like that bat flip, we like it." So it kind of took on a life of its own, and I just started doing it, and then it became kind of a known thing. There was never any disrespect to the pitcher. At that stage of baseball, and I started doing it around 2000. Pitchers. I think Dennis Eckersley kind of brought it in the league where he'd strike you out and he'd shoot you, and he'd yell. And as a hitter, I used to look at that and go, okay. And that just make you want to get him even more. Now, I never took that away and said that was weak or that was his thing. And that's what he did. Maybe that's what he needed to do to pitch the way he did. But I'll tell you, when those guys do that to you and you get them, it makes it all the much sweeter. But I never meant any disrespect to any pitchers. It's what I did. I did my bat flip. I was on my way to first. I never stood there and watched it. I was always moving. If somebody had a problem with it and they drill me, so be it. If I hit another one off you, I'm going to flip it double as far. And so I really didn't worry about that aspect. There was no disrespect in that. It's just kind of something I did. It's something my teammates liked. It's something my team liked. There was one teammate of mine that I loved, Aaron Seeley. He was in our starting rotation in 2001. And I'd call him Arnie. I'd say, Arnie, we'd be talking about things in the game. And I remember him telling me, he said, Bret, if we're ever playing against each other and we're on separate teams and you take me deep, will you do me a favor and not flip your bat on me? And I said, for you, Arnie, I'll do anything. And that came up in Anaheim a couple years later, and I hit a home run. And something in my mind said, I remember I promised Aaron that I wouldn't do it. I set it down and I circled the base and I came back in and I looked at him and he tipped his cap. And I said, yeah, there was no disrespect. It was just something, like I said, it was for fun. It was shticky. my teammates liked it, and that's why I did it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I noticed that. I didn't look disrespectful, but it's always a cool kind of cool little follow through.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll wrap up here. I really appreciate your time, Bret. It was great talking to you.
You got it. That's it.